One small-time indie filmmaker walks into a bar and meets with another small-time indie filmmaker to discuss their local films, the film scene, and how to make movies in Tampa, Florida. You get the Film Bar Review. Today we discuss Seeing Evil.
Film Bar Review. Here we are, Jon Tim. How you doing, man?
I'm good. How you doing, John?
Good. This is episode 3 now, right?
Episode 3, yeah.
That means we got the lucky number 3 here, which is Jason.
Hi guys.
Jason's here.
Hi guys. Wow. I didn't know you guys were going to be here.
Yeah.
At Tim's.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Henne.
Henne. I thought it was Henne.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if it was like so cultural that it was like Henne.
Yeah, or like, because it's spelled Henne, so it's kind of like penne pasta, but
Right.
no, it's Henne. And yeah, for the longest time I thought my family was like German chicken farmers, but I found out 2 years ago that I've been living a lie, that like my family's Ukrainian and like,
Oh wow, Ukrainian chicken farmers.
yeah, something like that. So yeah, I've had it wrong. I've been telling it with such confidence everybody believed it, but no.
That's great.
I'm not of German descent. I'm of Ukrainian descent.
Ukrainian. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me out. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's
Our
great
pleasure,
to hang out
bro.
with you in these crazy times.
I know,
Yeah,
right?
It's nice to get together.
The COVID generation.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I just had a COVID test today.
You did?
Yeah, at 10:30 a.m. and I got it, guys. Bring it in for a hug. All right. Yeah, let's get real close. No, tested negative. I'm leaving to go do a film, and they wanted everybody to get COVID tested before, and
makes
we'll
sense,
have COVID tests on set. But yeah, I've gotten tests for when I do like big commercials. You know, like for Apple or Sony, they will have tests either on set or you have to get tested before. So
Yep.
I've been tested probably like 15, 20 times.
I've heard people getting tested that many times in one production, like
Yeah.
just having to get tested over and over and over.
Yeah,
It's brutal, man.
yeah.
Did you have the deep one? Like where they say
It's
they
so
go
funny because I've
way
had
back
so
in
many
there?
that like I'll gauge it on how deep they
How far
go.
it goes.
This one today was just a Walgreens like do it yourself, and so you know I want to make sure I get it right, so I put it in to my comfort level. But I've been on like there was a specific Apple Music commercial shoot. And I guess the doctor just didn't like me or something, but poked it all the way to my brain, and it's just like you're just like tearing up for the next hour.
I got tested not that long ago. I told you about this, John. But man, when they went up in there, I mean, not even the serious one, but the shorter one.
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yeah.
man, it was like I just sneezed immediately on the poor girl.
The lady,
Like, I'm sorry.
I had one, and the lady just gave me this one and let me do it.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No, this was like, this girl was full. She was in like a hazmat suit. She had the shield on. She had gloves on, and she just went for it.
I mean, she was watching me. She was making sure
Holy
that I did it, properly
God,
or whatever.
that really, that's such a weird feel. I've never been tested
Gotta
like
go
that
way
for
up in
anything.
there.
You know?
Yeah.
Oh man, that was brutal.
Crazy times, right?
Yeah, crazy
It's actually you were mentioning having to do it multiple times. That was a reason. I was scheduled to direct a movie in the fall this last year, and the cost of 2 tests a day, which was what was being asked of us, as well as having a COVID officer on set, the cost was going to be too much. So we've had to put it on hold because it was going to cost us $40,000.
It's like doubling your cost.
Yeah, well, our budget was like $200,000, but still, that's like a large chunk of money that we
I was thinking of like the human resources cost. Like just on set.
Yeah.
Like you're just so many extra people and
and
time wasted.
Yeah, and it's been tricky, obviously I respect all the rules and everything like that, but I was doing a live thing for Apple Music where we had to, it was Shawn Mendes' album release, and so we were doing a live thing where the host is in LA and the control is in New York, and we're down in Miami with Shawn Mendes, and so we're trying to set it up, and there's a COVID officer on set, and the COVID officer is like telling us to separate from each other to keep our distance, which is fine, that's what they should do, but it's like there's certain things where like I have to get close, like it's a lens swap, like I can't be, you can't throw me the lens.
Or you're hooking someone up to a mic or something.
So, and we're dealing with a live thing, so we're like on a time crunch of like, we gotta get this, and she's like, guys, please separate, and it's like, please, like, just let us do our job, because like, honestly,
the other
like,
way, God damn it.
yeah, this is a big deal.
Always the rule is supposed to be mask or social distance.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously, it's hard to always prevent the social distance thing from, happening. So that's why you wear a mask, right?
Yeah.
Is because that could happen.
Supposedly.
It's like, well, then that's going to happen. Like, you've got to take, make allowances for that sometimes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we want prevention and all that stuff. But.
Yeah.
So was that test you were describing the anal swab, or is that the?
Yeah, that was.
Wow,
I chose to put it there. They told me later that's not where that goes. I said, "What do I do with this one? Do I put it up my nose now?" And they said that could compromise.
Well, they're
things,
more
so.
accurate tests. So,
that was my
Lord.
mistake. Yeah, I thought it was like checking your temperature that way. Yeah. So I made that mistake.
So what are we reviewing today? We're reviewing Jason's Seeing Evil and also Social Silence.
Oh, a double. You're
That's
doing
right.
a
Double
feature
whammy,
and a
yeah.
short film.
Feature and a short.
Cool. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
What happened? You don't want to tell me.
I don't want you to think I'm crazy. Do I know you?
Are you real?
Excuse me?
Are you real? Has the guy seen a doctor?
I don't think so, no.
I got a job.
You did? But what kind of work is it?
Playing the piano.
You don't play piano.
I know.
Seeing things. What kinds of things?
How long have you been playing?
Just today.
You started playing today?
Mommy? Who's that?
I guess you do play piano.
We need to start thinking about what's best for him.
What happened in there?
I messed up, all right? That's what happened. What do you want from me? Answer me!
You're not real.
So, how long have you been making films?
Okay. I've been making films, I don't want to say professionally, but like as part of a career path for like the last 8 years. But obviously, like what got me into it, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, is doing videos with your friends when you're young.
Yeah.
Just making
Me
dumb
too.
movies, And so my friends and I, when we were kids, were really big into like, we came up in the age of like Jackass on MTV, so it was just doing goofy stunts, which then turned into skits. This is pre-YouTube, so there was nowhere to really put them. It was mini DV tapes that you would have to
Mini
then
DV,
put on a
yep.
computer, and so we put out a feature like when we were like 17 called, and we didn't know what to put all these, because we had all these clips, we just called it Funny Movie. And then we kept filming stuff, and then we did Funny Movie 2. And then when we were like 24, it was Funny Movie 3. And I had purchased a Canon XL1, which was like a $1,000 camera,
Very nice
which
camera.
was like for a 20-something-year-old, it was crazy, to buy that. And the big thing about it was it shot 24 frames per second.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which
That's a
used
big
to
deal.
be the cameras,
I
like
remember those
digital
days,
cameras,
yeah.
like it was all
Getting a
30
hold of
frames
one
per
of those.
second.
Yep.
So you'd be like, check out the cinematic look of 24 frames.
Wow.
So
In like the dark ages of digital cinema.
yeah,
God,
yeah.
I remember those. I had an HV20.
Sure,
I sprung
yeah.
for this thing,
Yeah.
man, and it was like the first consumer level,
Yeah.
24 frames per second, and
Yeah.
it looked like
Yeah, it's terrible.
Garbage,
That's
man.
why I think
Absolutely.
we have digital versions of that, but it's just so terrible and grainy because they've now gone through like going from mini DV to digital and just time and everything. So it's
Yeah,
like
man.
cringy just to watch the quality. And I just think about like if I was a kid now, even with just a phone, like
I know.
every
You could
kid
make
that's like
something
15
better,
years
yeah.
old has like an iPhone 12 with like 4K like autofocus and all this
And
stuff.
like 3 lenses on a phone, right? I mean,
Yeah, you've got your
I had
wide
like
angle.
the built-in lens. You know, it was like
that's all you get.
There's like an
That's
old
it.
16 millimeter film camera almost.
Yeah, that
know,
was
like-
like, man, that's all you had.
So yeah. Anyway, like and I also grew up as a child actor, so I wanted to be an actor as a kid.
Cool,
so those kind of tied together. And then when I got out of high school, I realized, I went to LA when I was 16. I dropped out of high school and moved to LA, and I was doing the acting thing. And then the Screen Actors Guild went on strike, and basically, like, if you went to an audition, you were kind of on the road to being blacklisted. So nobody was going to auditions during that time.
Wow.
And it was about time to start my senior year in high school, and I said, I don't want to miss out on that experience. And then after that, I was like, I should go to college now. But I didn't even think of filmmaking as a career, So I got a degree in teaching and then got a master's degree in teaching. And this is all up in Seattle where I'm originally from. And then when I had my teaching degree, I was like, where can I live that's warm all year, has a decent cost of living and a good beach? And that's where I landed here in like Tampa Bay, Clearwater. I was like, on a teacher's salary, I could live comfortable. Like I could go to LA or San Diego, but I'm not going to be able to live comfortably on a teacher's salary.
Right.
And then, I kind of scrapped all that and found out that you can make money doing filmmaking, even if it's on the commercial or corporate side of things, to pay your bills while you're doing your passion projects. So, I was working for the Gates Foundation, and the project ended, so I was getting unemployment. And local filmmaker Nick Naylor, who you might know as, he was doing a movie called Pawns, and it's a comedy about guys who work in a pawn shop. And I auditioned for it because I was getting unemployment, so I was like, cool, not paying, or it was like a deferred, payment, which I didn't know what it meant at the time, which, we could talk more about.
Good luck getting paid.
Yeah, but anyway, I got a part in that, and then afterwards he was like, noticed I had some like microphones and a piano, like a digital piano. He's like, you're into music? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, do you know sound? And I was like, well, they're kind of one and the same. And he was like, so could you edit the audio for the film? And I was like, well, I don't know anything about that, but I want it to sound good, so let me see if I can maybe what I can do with it. And then I realized some of it was recorded so poorly we would need to record it again, and the sound mixer was out of the picture at the time, so I just bought some sound gear and used it. And then afterwards, after that movie, I saw some local filmmakers were doing just an on-camera mic, and I said, would you like me to come out and help with audio? And that was like a year of doing free stuff, and then started to get paid. And now, I was working as a professional sound mixer for years, and now that's branched into being a director and now a cinematographer, getting ready to go film. And I'm just, I'm fascinated by every job, so I'm trying to get, a foot in all of them.
Yeah, I looked through your IMDb, and you've got like credits in almost everything.
Well, I think, ultimately I want to be a filmmaker, and I think it doesn't hurt as a filmmaker to be well-versed in every position, because it helps me to communicate better with that position, and B, if somebody's doing something wrong, I have a little bit of knowledge to recognize that maybe the boom could be a little bit closer.
Hey man, you and me, we both agree on this. Like, because I think, like, I've always been like more of a storyteller.
Sure.
Like primarily, but then like I believe in the old studio system where it's like you kind of work your way up, and so I almost felt like if you're going to be a director or a producer, you should know a little bit about everything.
Yeah.
So that when you say, hey, this is a bad idea or this is a good idea, keep doing this, you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, for sure. It's tough to be in charge if you can't.
Yeah. If you don't have any understanding of what they're doing.
What Joe Schmo's in the corners now.
Yeah, or you don't have an idea of how long it takes for them to do this or how difficult it is.
Right.
Like, how can you be really asking people to do these things?
That's another point, is because when we work on the indie side of things, time is sometimes a bigger factor than, every film set, even at the highest level, time is still a factor. But for us, indie-wise, there's no asking for another, $20,000 to get it done.
Somebody's
we have
gotta
to get
do
it done within this time. So it's able to point out the weak links in the chain of saying, like, okay, like, lighting is taking, we're waiting 40 minutes on lighting.
Yeah.
We maybe need to get another person in here, which we could do, or swing somebody from camera over to lighting to help them out because it's taking too long. or like while they're lighting, I need to be blocking because I've noticed that by the time it's lit, now I'm blocking, but now we're waiting another 20 minutes for me to block. Like, how can we do this so that everybody's ready at the same time? Because that's the real goal,
man.
is that it's like a machine that just like, when everybody's like finished their thing, now we're rolling, you know? So,
man, totally agree. You know, that's a producer's mindset too, I think.
yeah, I do. Obviously, you saw my credits, like I produce, and now, without getting too much into it, like any feature that I direct from this point on, I'll be a producer on, just because I, you know, when you put all that time in and passion into it, you want to have a say in what happens after and kind of before.
Right.
And also, I like being part of the money conversation, just because, you know, without getting too into it, one feature I kind of got blindsided by, like, they were like, you're, you know, X amount of dollars over budget, and it's like, how did this happen? When did this happen? You know, and it's like, what are you going to do about it? You know, you can either, you know, fork up the cash yourself, or we can take a bigger percentage of your cut to put that in. And I did not like that situation, and I don't want to be in that situation again.
Right, yeah,
so,
exactly. That's a strange situation to be in.
Yeah, but those are kind of the things that happen.
Yeah.
Where you can find yourself. So, yeah.
So it makes me feel like you're like a Swiss Army knife of
Try to
like
be.
film sets around here.
Yeah, I try to be. And you know and the tough thing with that is I say no more than I say yes to things at this point. And it's not that I don't want to, it's just that it's allowed me to be more selective with my time. And it's not, you know, I'd love to help out everybody and I'd love to be a part of everything. But yeah, I have to be a little more selective, which is a good thing. I think that's
absolutely.
And that's something you have to learn as you go on, is like you don't want to overexert yourself so then you're no good, or you're missing out on certain things because you're saying yes to everything. So
that's the benefit of, I think, going on a lot of sets. And also, like, Tim, when you were in film school, it's like one good thing about that is you get the experience on all the different jobs, so that not only do you know what you're good at, like everybody wants to be a director maybe, but maybe you'd make a better cinematographer, and you also figure out what you're not good at. And you can kind of face that fact and be like, okay, I've done this, I've tried it, it's just not, like, I know about it, but I know that I'm not as good as this other dude who's like an expert at it. So you not only build respect for what you can and cannot do, you build respect for others and what they can
positions
do. You know, you value them more, you know, because you know you just can't do as good as somebody else.
And it also is like, it gives you an opportunity to recognize maybe what you could work on, or what you could develop, you know, if it's not a strength. They say there's like two types of directors who like to work with the actors, and directors who like to work on the camera side, the technical side. And so what I found is, like, being an actor early on, like, that comes more naturally to me, is talking to actors, working with actors, understanding that process. And so that's why I've been getting more into cinematography, so that I understand that language more and can kind of build that side up.
The technical side.
Yeah, which fascinates me as well. Yeah, it just doesn't come.
Well, didn't you when I met you, which was like what, 7 years ago?
Yeah, it was
meeting with Joe Boyle.
1945.
It feels like it.
Eisenhower was president.
He warned us about the industrial military complex.
Yeah, we didn't believe him. That was about 7 years ago that we crossed paths through a mutual friend. Yeah.
And you had a Blackmagic cinema camera.
Absolutely, the 2.5K Blackmagic with the EF mount. That was when Blackmagic kind of revolutionized things. Yeah, by creating this $3,000 camera. And back then, $3,000 was a lot of money for me. But I just love the idea of, because prior to that, the Red camera was out, and I can remember working in a hotel, the front desk of a hotel, and seeing this Red camera, and like, oh my gosh, it's like a movie camera that you shoot digitally, and it's like, I gotta have one of these.
What, 20 grand, something like that?
More than that. It was like 40 or 50 grand. I was like, someday I'm gonna have one of those. And now I leave my Red with the sensor off and don't care. No, but now I've had like several flavors of Red since then. But now I have two Aris, which I think are better. And but anyway, the Blackmagic was my first cinema camera. And I brought it out and shot some cool stuff with it.
Speaking of Ari and Blackmagic, I heard that the new Blackmagic, whether, I don't know if it's the 6K or what, but they're saying it's got like what 13 stops of dynamic range.
Well,
it's almost as good as the RE. Is what they're saying.
I don't know exactly which camera you might be talking about. They just released a 12K camera, which to me seems like overkill.
That's a bit overkill, yeah.
You know, because we, some of us don't even have 4K TVs yet.
I know. Right?
But the argument there is that you have all that room to crop in, and when you downscale it, you get all the resolution, and it's pretty great. And it's about $10,000, which is pretty pricey, but pretty good if you compare it to like, like I have an RE Mini, which I got used for like 40 grand. So yeah, but Blackmagic also makes like a $1,300 pocket 4K camera right now,
man.
which is just, it's an amazing cinema camera for what it costs, you know. I have one, I have all these cinema cameras, but I have this pocket 4K that I'll use probably for 75% of the things I do, just because like sometimes that's all you need, you know, unless I'm doing a high-end commercial or whatever. Like we've gotten to a point now where like they're so good that it's just a small difference between a $1,300 camera and a $40 or $50 or $80,000 camera.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a movie, you want that difference if you can, you know.
Yeah.
So
that dynamic range is nice.
Yeah, and it saves you, you know, if you're shooting in front of windows and you want to save some of the, you know, some of that bright stuff. But also, you know, more than the dynamic range is nice, but it's also the color science, you know. The RE camera's just like, there's a reason that like,
it's a real soft. It's a real soft
one. And skin just looks good on it. That's just the thing. It's just like, I don't know what it is, but the skin tone on this looks great. Granted, the reds look great, and like obviously like Hobbit movies and you know David Fincher works with red, so it's like not like the red cameras are any kind of slouch or anything like that. But just I noticed from having both, something about the way skin looks with an RE camera, it just looks good, which is why I think if cinematographers have a choice, they'll usually go.
I think they've gone the film route. Like they're trying to emulate film.
Sure,
which I think is smart.
And what's crazy about it is the sensor that is inside has been the same sensor they've had for like 10 years. It's like the Colonel's secret recipe.
Yeah, exactly.
That they figured out like exactly what works. Like let's not mess with it.
Don't mess with it.
Let's just keep putting it in different bodies, camera bodies, you know. And so that's why a lot of times like they'll be shooting a movie and the camera doesn't even shoot 4K. They'll just up-res it to 4K.
Up-res it. They can do
the
that,
RE Mini does not shoot 4K, so it is like it's you know. Which is crazy to think, you know, here's Blackmagic making a 12K camera, yet they're shooting a movie like a Hollywood
they're down-resing
blockbuster movie on a camera that can't even shoot 4K.
Yeah.
So it kind of tells you how important that, you know, 4K really is. So.
Have you heard about the 6K Pro?
Yeah, that just came out. That's the Blackmagic 6K Pro, which is very cool. It's, I believe, $3,000. And the difference there is it has the screen flips out and kind of tilts up, which is nice. And it has built-in ND filters, which
that's
is
a
nice.
big deal.
Which is big. They're having some, you know, I don't want to spread rumors or anything like that. They're having some quality control issues on this first batch.
I heard about
so
that.
I don't
Some
know when
color
this is going to be released. They're saying they can fix it with a firmware update that just the screen on the back has like a blue tint to it. So, you know, it's a minute thing, but if you're listening to this and considering that camera, maybe wait or research, you know, where they are at the process of kind of making sure those cameras are all coming out great.
Because we were thinking about going Blackmagic, weren't we?
Yeah, I would honestly recommend the $1,300 4K, because how often are you really going to need 6K?
That's I've been thinking about that camera for a while now. You know, we've been talking about it for a while. It's like we're just gonna get it, man. It's like what the hell?
Yeah,
just go for it.
Yeah,
you know, from what I can tell, like you say, 6K, 12K. I mean, come on. You know, I'll probably be all right with 2K for crying out loud.
Sure,
I don't even know what K is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like I don't really need that exactly. You know, like I'll just find it. You know, I'll frame it.
Sure. And you got to think about as the resolution.
You got to get out there as a filmmaker
and just do it.
You have to step in. It's not just the camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? I mean,
that's why I've seen people with a Canon, like a 5D, make it look better than a Red, and that's really you can. Yeah, right. You know, it's not always about the camera. It's what you do with it. It's how you light.
It's not the what is it? It's not the club. It's the golfer.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd recommend it. And when you guys do get it, let me know, because I'll tell you, like, in my experience, the
That's
best
cool,
way I've
'cause
kitted it out.
You have it, right?
Yeah, I have one.
So
Yeah. And I'll probably pick up a second just for like podcasts. It's like a great because
Mm-hmm.
it's a HDMI out, but even like events, or it's just a great image at a great price. Yeah.
It's a hell of a price, man.
Yeah,
Amazing.
which for some people might be listening and they're like $1,300. That's crazy, but like, think about like the difference between, as I was saying, like a $50,000 cinema camera, and you can do something close to that for $1,300.
Like you say, you hear red and everybody's red. It's like, oh man, and you look at those things like the brains, and it's like, damn, I wish I had a red, man.
I know.
But then you find out about this black magic thing, and it's like, oh, okay. And you start checking them out. It's like, wow, this is,
There's always some
great
new camera.
value.
Yeah.
And,
now they got the
great piece of
Z-Cam.
tech.
And
Yeah,
other
which is
cams.
great. There's new companies coming out that are kind of filling gaps. I like Kinefinity is a camera that you're probably going to see more. They've been putting out cameras. They're a Chinese camera company, but like they have a camera coming out in April that feels like, okay, they're finally stepping into the market of like competing with Red and Ari, and that's going to be exciting too. So yeah, I like just technology and how it's moving at a rapid pace. Yeah, I feel like probably LED lighting, drones, and gimbals in the last 10 years have just revolutionized what we're able to do.
Yeah.
And it's just exciting to be part of, having
You like
tools.
working on a gimbal?
I have a love-hate relationship with gimbals. I had, I've had all kinds of flavors of gimbals. I had a Movi Pro for a little bit, but I didn't like the batteries that Movi built. If you let them sit for like a week or two, they would die on you, and I just was so upset about that because I wouldn't use it enough. And then I just have these $100 paperweights or $150 paperweights. So I have a beef with them, and I sold it. But now they make a plate for it where you can use the DJI batteries on it. So I'm thinking of getting another one again. But for the movie we're doing, I rented a Ronin 2, which can handle a little more weight than the Movi Pro, because we're going to have the RE Mini with the ingenue anamorphic zoom on there. So it's going to be probably about a 10-pound setup.
Yeah, because those lenses are pretty hefty, aren't they?
Yeah, this one's light for a zoom lens for sure, but also it's a cinema glass and they can get heavy. So yeah. What
nice, kind of anamorphic lens is it?
It's called it's made by a company called Ingenue.
Okay. Oh yeah, Ingenue. Yeah.
Ingenue, yeah, and it's
big ass lenses, man.
Yeah, they have. It's funny because I have some of the lenses that I have.
Beautiful lenses ever made.
Yeah, I have an Ingenue 30-90 Easy One, which is like a more modern version of their lens, and so it's lighter and it's great because it has you can swap the mount on the back from EF to PL, which is kind of the cinema. And that's rare, like to be able to just unscrew the mount and put on a different mount so you can change from cameras. That's not common. And then the anamorphic, is similar in size, but there's some older Ingenues that are like heavy and bulky, and I've been considering like an Ingenue 17 to 80, which is kind of like a big hefty lens, but like you could do a whole film.
You could do a whole film with that.
17 to 80,
Absolutely.
that covers enough, and it's a 2.2, so you can, open up and get that depth of field. Yeah, there's one going for like 16,000 that like I've considered selling because my Easy One 30-90 is like a $12,000 lens. I've been considering selling it and getting that one instead. Just to have one that could kind of do everything.
Sure.
Yeah, like the what was the Jordan Peele movie Get Out was shot with Ingenue zooms, so it's like they're definitely good enough.
Oh, they're major.
Yeah, they're definitely good
like
enough for
super
features.
professional.
And often you hear about for movies using prime lenses, but he used zooms, and I don't think anybody complained about like, oh, something's off about this film. That looked great, right?
Yeah. That is what I heard about the Ingenue lenses, is that you could basically like use their zooms as a prime almost. They're just as good. Yeah, they're super good with light and everything.
Yeah, and usually with zooms, they're like a higher t-stop or whatever, or focal length, so like you can't open up enough to let more light in, which like doing that gives you more shallow depth of field. But like my Easy One, it's like a 2.0. I will say the lens I'm shooting this movie with is an anamorphic, and it's a T4, which would be like an f3.6, and maybe this is way too technical for your audience, but I'm worried
No, go for
because being a T4 means I got to throw more light at it.
Right.
But the thing about anamorphic lenses,
it's not as fast.
Yeah, they traditionally anamorphic lenses are not sharp until you get to f4. So probably you wouldn't want to use an anamorphic. You'd probably be safe between a 3 and a 4. So I'm already kind of that's where I'd be anyway. But I'm just being cognizant that like I'm gonna have to throw more light than I normally would.
Right.
But it's gonna be beautiful.
Outdoors would be great.
Yeah, outdoors will be great, and the RE Mini has built-in NDs, and it's going to be nice. And having the zoom is so nice because it's like we're going in for a close-up, and just like zoom in, and you can have your close-up there.
Yeah.
So
you've shot a few of your films, but you didn't shoot Seeing
No,
Evil.
should we talk about it? Is the show over? Did we miss it?
No.
Yeah.
No, because you were saying that you didn't do cinematography for the Seeing Evil, but I think it was, what was his name?
This cinematographer for that film?
Yeah.
Alex Lukovsky?
Lukovsky. Okay, yeah.
Russian guy.
Cool.
If you couldn't guess.
Russian.
Yeah. He's a great friend of mine, his brother Dennis, these two Russians that I was working on a set and they were in the lighting and grip department, and it was like a 14-hour day and everybody was beat, but these two Russians were just still running on set. They just had this crazy work ethic. And then I found out, like,
it's great.
Once I got to hang out with them, they both had this very dry Russian sense of humor that I really enjoyed. So we just became really good friends, and he has just a great eye, and so that was the choice for cinematography. I'm great friends with the guy who shot my first feature, Crazy Lake, Brandon Hyde, who we've stayed great friends.
You talked about him, yes.
Yeah, we've stayed. He's a local guy who just
He's amazing.
Huh?
He's amazing.
Yeah, he just shot Kevin Smith's film, but at the time, he was working with a production company and kind of like contracted by that production company, so he couldn't do projects outside of that. Not that, I don't want to say like, oh, I would have rather had him than him,
Right.
but that was just the nature of how things were. But now Brandon is freelance again, because of COVID, they had to cut back and they had to kind of let him go, and he's doing freelance, and he is killing it. And
Cool.
it's great because I get to see him more. We just did an Outback, we did a Baycare hospital commercial, and then we were scheduled to do an Outback commercial, and he calls me. It was an early call. It was like 5:45 a.m. So I had to be up at like 4:45, and I get a text at like 5 a.m. and he's like, "Bro, I've never had to do this, but I am so sick. I don't think I can make it today." And I'm like, "Bro, you're scheduled to be the cinematographer on this." And I was like, "You know what? I'm getting ready to go shoot a movie in Virginia. Like, I was scheduled to do sound. I was like, I can do both. I can step up."
That's awesome, man.
So I stepped up and
Good job.
did both. And we had other people. It was like a 3-camera shoot, so I was manning one of the cameras, but just organizing.
Take
the
some
lighting.
cojones to just be like, I'm going to do the cinematography for this.
Yeah. And it turned out really nice. It was cool. It was like employees of Outback talking about why they're getting the vaccine, because it was Outback encouraging employees to get the vaccine, so everybody can kind of get back to things. And then we did some beauty shots of dipping, different things in different foods, like dipping the wings in the sauce and then dipping the chili
the
cheese
close-ups.
fries. Yeah, and that was with the Blackmagic Pocket 4K
get
at
the light just
120
right.
frames a second.
Get the glistening light
Exactly,
of
yeah.
the sauce.
Yeah, so I didn't work with Brandon. I stepped in for him, but we've kept in touch, and he's great. And he's still local to Tampa Bay, and he's been talking about moving, so it'd be a great loss if he moved, but hopefully it'd still come back down.
Nashville, right, you were saying?
Yeah. But it's
too
all
bad.
talks, and it's tougher when you have a family and you're kind of plugged into the system to make that move. But his wife might get a job in Tennessee, and so that'd be rough. Because him and I, I know we want to talk about this movie, but you get me talking about Brandon. We came up together, which was really cool. Like, we were working for next to nothing. I was doing sound, he was doing camera. And so it's so cool to see our career paths kind of elevate, and when we got to work on the Kevin Smith film that shot here,
Kilroy was here.
Yeah, Kilroy was here 2 years ago. He was the cinematographer and I was the assistant director. And it was just kind of cool to step back and be like, bro, can you remember when we were, just figuring this out, and now here we are with like this director, and we're, kind of
with a Hollywood director.
Yeah, we're kind of like, it's like, wow, that hard work, and to be kind of next to each other from the beginning and kind of to this point, it's just cool to have a journey with somebody like that. And we're still good friends. So it's cool when you can, be on the journey with people, But there will be people who kind of fall off, who get into other things, who find that they're not as passionate as they used to be. But, sometimes you reconnect, or sometimes, they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, you're just not on the same path. Anyway, Seeing Evil.
Let's count the films up to Seeing Evil. We don't have to do all of them, but there was a thing that you did Crazy Lake. What was that, 2014, something like that?
I want to say it's probably 5 years ago now.
Okay, yeah.
Crazy Lake, which was a slasher horror film, first film. Shot.
Yeah, 2016.
Yeah, which I co-directed with Chris Leto, who is a good friend of mine, and we both love horror films. So
you co-directed both of these films with
Chris,
Leto, right?
yeah.
What's that like?
It's an interesting dynamic. Co-directing is, if you're having a hard time getting your project off the ground, it's something that you should look into, especially if you have somebody that you work really well with and have a very similar mindset, or even if you're not the same, you have strengths that play well with each other. Right. So the dynamics with Chris and I has always been like, he will get excited about a project, and then he'll say, I want to do this, and then I'll come in and say, well, here's how I would do it.
Yeah.
And then
you're getting technical about it.
Exactly.
He's very like big picture.
Here's how to do this well. You would want to do this, this, and this. Yeah. And he's like, that's interesting. And then he'll be like, okay, well, I think I might write it. And then he'll send me some pages, and I was like, well, it's good, but what's missing is this, and then it's missing this, and so I would kind of do it this way. And he's like, I like this, and I was like, I'll just rewrite it, and then you can do it. And then once I write it, I really like it.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, we've got to tackle this together at this point.
That's great.
So that's kind of been the dynamics. So yes, Seeing Evil was our second film, and we did that, shot it about 3 or 4 years ago. It's kind of been widely released for maybe 2 years now, because it was in post for a year, kind of finding itself and figuring out what the edit was. And the way that movie came about, if I can kind of start from the beginning, is Chris's sister, and I think that's a big question for filmmakers, is like, where do you get the money to make your movie? That's probably the biggest
question people have.
Is like, where do you get the money? And everybody's story is different. Where we got the money for our first movie is different than where we got the money for our second movie. But having done the first movie definitely helped getting money for the second movie.
Yep.
Because it's almost like a credibility, and obviously you can put a movie together.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris's sister was working at a doctor's office, and the doctor had expressed an interest in being involved with film stuff, and so we took a meeting with him, and he kind of pitched us on a movie about Gaspar the Pirate coming back to life during Gasparilla, and what that would be. And so
that led to Seeing Evil, or did that lead to
no? They're completely different. Completely different. So I'm sitting there.
Doctor in Seeing Evil? Is that the guy?
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I was trying to avoid names, but now obviously people could totally. And I hope nobody's like, oh, I'm going to hit this guy up for some money, because anyway, we're sitting in this room, and I'm like, okay, so would this be like a family film if it's like and he goes, no, it would be like a horror film, because you guys do horror films. And I'm just like looking at Chris confused.
How does that work?
I don't think that's a good movie at all. And he's like, yeah, and you could film it during Gasparilla. And I was like, this guy thinks that we could do a whole movie within the days of Gasparilla.
Like the day.
The day of this parade and everything, and it's like all those extras and people and pirate ships and all this, and I go, this is one, I'm not crazy about this idea, but just the feasibility of doing this on a budget anywhere near what we would want to ask for, like it'd be way too expensive. So I kind of pull him out and I'm like, no, like I
But that's why money people need artists, and artists need money people.
Yeah. So we go back in the room and we're kind of like, whoa, we don't think that. Do you have any other stories or ideas that like you'd like to see? And then he goes, because he's very into Tampa, obviously with Gasparilla being Tampa based, he's very into the history and what makes Tampa Tampa. So he's like, what about something with lightning then? Because as you know, Tampa's like the lightning capital, and our hockey team is lightning. And I was like,
wow, I wouldn't have thought it would start with a lightning strike.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like, let's make a horror film.
Right. No, this is interesting because you guys have seen it. You're knowing kind of you're getting the behind the scenes stories of how,
that's great.
how it came to be. So you guys, a movie with lightning, and I was like, okay, what with lightning? He's like, maybe somebody gets struck by lightning. And I was like, okay, and then how is that a scary movie? And he's like, I don't know, you guys figure it out. And so I take
That's good though. He's like deferring
I take
to you.
Chris out of the room, and I'm like, this isn't kind of work. Like, I don't see stories here, and like I would want to do something that he wants to do because it's obvious it's his money. So let's make him happy and do a movie that he wants to do. And he kind of pulls me aside and he goes, listen, do you understand that all you need to do is write a movie with lightning in it and we can get funding for this film? And I'm like, okay, well, how could I combine lightning and horror? And I was like, okay, what if you got struck by lightning and then after getting struck by lightning, you started to see things that were not there, like scary things. Yeah. And I was like, all right. And I also like the idea of like, okay, that's like a curse, but what about if it was a blessing and a curse? So I was like, okay, what if the blessing was after getting struck by lightning, you gained these kind of intelligent abilities, which is actually a thing that I had heard about, is like people get struck by lightning and then they can play the piano or, all these things. So that's based on real...
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, cool. Like people getting struck by lightning and then something clicks in their brain where it's like opens up a synapse. So, so it's like, okay, what if we combined, I really love the movie It Follows, which is kind of an indie horror where like this kind of...
I never saw that.
It's great.
Yeah.
Definitely,
it's fun.
Definitely give it a watch. It's one of the best horror movies in the last 10 years. I like that, and I like the way it was like people, but there was something off with the way the people look. I like that, and I also like Phenomenon, or the movie with Bradley Cooper where he takes the pill and he gets smarter.
I was just going to say that.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
I like
it's Limitless meets The Soloist.
The Soloist
meets The Sixth Sense.
Yeah. See, where I thought when we were watching it, I was like, okay, so this feels like it's about the story about the guy and the girl, and then trying to bring in the horror thing as appeasing, local
a horror audience
level film, that
or it's genre filmmaking.
Exactly. Kind of bringing that in,
right?
Where it felt like there was something with the guy and the girl. That's what I thought was like the point of origin, I guess.
Yeah, and that's maybe where the movie falters, is that like it's not quite sure what it wants to be, so it's like it never quite succeeds as a horror film. And as like a love story drama, it doesn't quite get to where it needs to go. And then it kind of turns into a little bit of a thriller, towards the end. And then you have this almost sci-fi element of like having the ability to do these kind of things that you couldn't do. That would be one of my critiques from a writing standpoint, is like, it was trying to be too many things, and it was maybe too many ideas. And part of that might be that this, this is almost like a therapy session I should be laying down. Part of that might be...
Tell me how you feel.
Yeah, that it wasn't necessarily my original idea. I was trying to create a story based on what somebody said they wanted to see. So this was me trying to do a story that I wanted to do based around something that somebody else said they wanted to see.
Right.
So that
makes sense, though.
That's probably not a good route to go moving forward. You need to be in love with and have this story and make it a story that you want to tell, that like you're very clear about your story. And for me, it was trying to do what I wanted to do on top of what somebody else wanted to see.
Right.
So that is probably, still go watch it. Check it out on Amazon Prime. But no, it's just giving you a little backstory to kind of what to look for or be prepared for. And maybe you'll find that, some of the scary stuff does work for you, or some of the love story you do find kind of sweet, and nice. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the missteps of the film.
That's an interesting story because, a lot of people don't know how a lot of these things get made.
Yeah, particularly at an indie
It's a very
level.
honest take on it. A lot of people wouldn't admit, faults or errors at all in their own films.
Oh, sure.
I'm glad.
Particularly this was years ago. Yeah. I love the idea of looking back at Crazy Lake or Seeing Evil and just being able to go like, definitely wouldn't do that. Definitely, even from the writing standpoint.
Right.
And speaking of the writing, I think probably one of my biggest regrets about it is the ending of the film, and that's probably what gets a lot of like critique. And this is rough, like spoiling it. I don't want to spoil it, but
it's okay. We can spoil it.
Yeah, I mean we kind of do. I think.
It's worth
watch
talking
the film
about.
first, then come back here.
If you're listening, pause
That's right.
now.
Hit pause.
Go to Amazon Prime. Watch the film. Watch to the very end. Get really upset about the ending,
and then come
back and listen to why we did it that way.
That's right.
Thanks. No, at the ending, it's culminating like you're going to have a big, like traditionally you'd have like an escape of the two leads getting out of there and like taking down the bad guy. But
some resolution.
I chose to
the
kind
dark
of abruptly kill the two leads.
Kill everybody
at the end of the movie, which
it becomes a dark comedy.
Yeah, which just is very upsetting.
I kind of enjoyed it actually. I thought it was pretty ballsy.
Yeah,
no, it was. It was.
Yeah.
And that's been the response, is either like you liked it or you didn't. And so either you liked it or you really hated it.
Well, I liked after that you have this really great commercial.
Yeah,
like,
for the
here's
that
this.
was good. Yeah,
it's like how pharmaceuticals are made.
Yeah.
Except like much worse.
Yeah. So
imagine?
That was kind of always the plan, is nope, the bad guys kind of win, and it was. I didn't want to make it a big social take, but like it's pharmaceutical companies have a lot of power, and the idea of like killing people to get a drug out is not that crazy, especially a drug that powerful that can expand your mind and change the world,
It makes some sense. Yeah.
So, people are like, who haven't seen it, what does this have to do with lightning?
Nothing.
Yeah. So,
and actually, it's revealed that the lightning really didn't do it to him at all.
Another spoiler alert. Yeah, it was lightning.
Does he actually get struck by lightning? Because I remember when we were watching.
I don't think he does.
No,
I think lightning.
Yeah, right?
And the idea is that he was just affected by the drug and kind of
okay. Because I remember thinking that, being like, well, that didn't even, we didn't even see a flash or that kind of thing. Yeah. But I'm laughing at when you're talking about the end of the movie and it's like he decided to kill everybody.
Yeah.
It's something that's always occurred to me as I'm writing and I'm coming to the end of a movie. It's like, don't kill everybody, for God's sakes, man. Like, hold back on that. That's the easiest way. And I'm not, not talking about your movie in general, but it's a lot easier to kill people than it is to find a proper resolution that makes sense, that fits the story, where people actually live. It's so much easier to just be like, oh, everybody's dead.
I mean, that's just
roll credits.
The tip of the iceberg with like a good, satisfying ending. Like, there's just like resolution of just like how a story should work, of like what the character wanted from the beginning they didn't get, but they got this other thing that was like connected to the theme, and all these like things that you learn as a writer, a good writer, that over time after writing like 6 or 7 features and reading about books and then also watching the movies of like, oh, they do this and this movie does this and this movie does this and these movies all work because they do that.
Exactly.
I think for me, I was kind of inspired by the end of the movie The Mist, which is like a Stephen King, The Mist.
That's a hardcore
ending.
Yeah, oh my
God.
Which I'll that never forget watching that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I was going for. Brutal. Is like, it was upsetting and
Yeah.
like gut wrenching. And
For sure.
I wanted, if I was like, ooh, if I can do part of that, because the movie is okay, it's kind of well done, but that ending has stuck with me, just like you said. And it's like, oh, if I could do something well, it probably just wasn't as executed as well as that, because that was so gut wrenching.
And, you know, honest to God, I'm not even necessarily, you know, speaking to seeing evil, but just I find that personally as a writer, basically, that my tendency is to just be like, well, everybody's got to go kind of thing.
Right.
But you watch, you know, there's a lot of good. I just watched No Country. Actually, last night I watched No Country. And it's like, that is a master class in how to end a film.
Yeah.
And really wrap up every single theme, every single loose end that's taking place within that movie.
Yeah.
But also, somebody does die, right?
Right.
Like our pseudo-protagonist, whereas like, who's really the story is about Tommy Lee Jones' character, which is about the getting old thing, right? And Shigure, you know, he still gets to live. But to end on that everybody doesn't just get taken out. It's like, that takes class.
And there is some resolution. Yeah. And that's credit to the Coen brothers.
Open-ended, but at the same time,
game.
resolved, right? Like, we've gotten there. And it's just, I mean, that's a phenomenal film. But, you know, it's just a simple thing. It's like, man, it is tough to just find that right way to end a film. Man.
Yeah.
It is tough.
So
on paper even, it's
my
tough.
new process for writing, which it used to be I would just start writing and just go through to the end, but now my process is like a deep outline prior to getting to the actual scripting.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah,
I agree.
and that
I
actually
do that
started.
too.
Yeah, I wrote.
Yeah, you do that, John?
Oh yeah.
I wrote a feature for Dominic Smith, who's a local filmmaker. We collaborated,
we know Dom.
and he kind of hired me to write a feature, which I'm really proud of, and like it hasn't been made yet, so it's like a script that's like he's got and is waiting to be made. It's called Lucid, and it's about a.
Should you really tell us everything now?
Because it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah.
Whatever you write, it won't be as good as this script. So try. No, it's about a sleep study facility, and what they're doing is they're putting a machine on people that lets people communicate within dreams. Which, because he's a huge Nightmare on Elm Street fan, so I wanted to tie into the idea of dream worlds. But the guy who's putting the study together, his wife is in a coma, and the reason he's doing this is because he's trying to communicate with his wife in a coma and get her out of it.
Oh wow!
And so while they're, and it's a horror movie, so while they're in their dream state together, all these scary things start happening, and it's, you know, the wife who's doing it, and it's kind of this evil entity throughout the thing, you know, and
makes me think of Flatliners.
Yeah. So it's kind of a mix of almost kind of. Black Mirror with, you know, kind of some Nightmare on Elm Street elements.
Show,
Cool.
Yeah, so I'd love to see it get done. But anyway, during that process, I'm collaborating with a director, so I don't want to start a script until he signs off on every beat, you know, of the story, that he's happy with the characters and he's happy with all this. So it was probably like a 16-page outline prior to getting into a 100-page script.
Yeah,
you know,
that's great.
because I want to detail every scene so that I'm like, then there's this, there's this.
That's got to be an interesting process, actually working with somebody else in that writing, but also trying to not appease them, but make something that's pleasing to them, because they're going to be the one who's doing it, in a sense. That must have been a whole nother...
Well, and I mean, I imagine, you know,
it's
potentially practice for if you're working with a studio, you know, or you're writing something now, everything is franchise, you know.
Development
if you're
hell.
tapped to write a Star Wars movie, you're not going to just get to do whatever you want, you know. You're going to have to answer some powers that be. It's going to have to do some things, you know, and it's going to get
But those
signed
restrictions can also be, you know, enabling in a sense. You know?
Sure.
It's like there's always, you know, when
the
you're
world is
working
already
within-
built, you know, and then you can
know,
have
you're working within a
limitations.
little box. It's like, man, you can, if you can't just go everywhere, you can actually make
you can
something
have some
good with
and
what's
that's
right
why
in front of you.
maybe something like the third Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok, where, you know, the director got to stay within the wheelhouse of Marvel, but got to kind of go off the rails a little bit and do it a little weird. Yeah, it's a little bit goofy, you know.
It's the fun. It's
yeah.
really fun.
I enjoyed the first one. I saw the first one.
Oh, it's
thinking,
better.
Like, that's not a bad movie.
Yeah,
I think
they
it's better
have
than the
to
first
with
and
some of
second.
these Marvel and Star Wars films, because people are looking for the same but different. You know, they want you to deliver on everything they know and love, but they also need something different. You
That's
know,
a tough world right now, man. That's
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
bleak,
Yeah.
dismal world.
Yeah,
right
that's
now.
a whole probably other show to talk about the state of franchise films. Anyway,
Hey,
sorry.
I was just looking, just to interject here before we get into Seeing Evil more.
Yeah.
I noticed these shorts you did a while back with some other people in 2014, the Phobia films.
Yeah. Yeah, that
What was going on there?
Yeah, Chris and I, Chris Leto and I liked that we wanted to keep making stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we started doing, it was easy to get people together to do 2 or 3 day short films.
Right.
So we had the idea of, okay, let's do an anthology
Right.
based on all Phobia films. So we can, like, this month, take 3 days, have people come help us out for free.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do a Phobia story based on one Phobia, and we'll do 6 or 7 of them, and we'll put it together as an anthology, and that will be an easy way to get a feature out that's affordable for us.
Yeah, I was actually working on something similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the anthology film, we haven't had a good one in a while.
Always a good
but
idea.
I think there's merit to that, and if if you're only able to do short films, if that's a limitation for you, consider doing that. Consider doing, especially if you can tie them together in some way.
Yeah.
The idea of Phobias just kind of worked for us because we like doing horror stuff, and the idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
So yeah, we did.
John was even talking about something along those lines, right?
Yeah, it was
Remember John McElroy? He was talking about.
Oh, John McElroy. Yeah, he was talking about
like legends, like folklore stuff, like Florida-based kind of thing, and
right, like a
some
Florida
along
Man kind of thing.
Some along those lines, like anthology-wise.
Yeah. Even the Kevin Smith film that we worked on is a series of like 3 or 4 shorter stories about this one kind of villain character kind of put together. So, and that worked for him because like he filmed some of it and then went and did the Jay and Silent Bob reboot and then was able to come back and start fresh with kind of a new, 15-minute story with new actors and new characters. So
it's a great idea.
Yeah, so even bigger filmmakers are leaning into that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you can only do shorts, think about doing an anthology because it's hard to make money off of short films. But if you could put them together, then you have something you can sell that's feature length.
Yeah, absolutely.
And John, you were talking about a horror thing, right?
I was working on that a few years back. I called it the 12 Steps of Horror or something like that. That was just like a place card name that we were using. And then actually Dom Scott, a few other filmmakers that were local. I was trying to basically make it to where we had 10 to 12 filmmakers, good horror filmmakers, and then we would all, it was a really complicated project. It's probably overly complicated. But the idea was that we would craft a basic storyline together, first of all, and then we would have like 10 to 12 beats in the film. Like, have you done the whole beat sheet thing? Like you're talking about doing a deep dive with the structure. I like using beats, and because to me they're like good tonally, a tonal focus for a story. And so you'd have these 10 or 12 filmmakers who would handle one of the beats. So like there'd be the introduction, and one of the filmmakers would do the introduction, and then another would do this. And it was all the same story. It's a whole feature story, but we're all just breaking it up into parts. And then each director does that part, but the story is supposed to fit together into a feature. It's not necessarily meant to be seamless, because I could see that could be a problem. So it's like, don't necessarily try to be seamless, but you want like a similar visual style, and we're all on the same page with the story. So it's like, but almost everything else, it's like, okay, you don't have to worry about is this going to be seamless or not. You just kind of like do what you do well, and there's a reason that we're picking you to do this beat anyway. So we think you can do this beat really well. So we literally got to the point where we sat around in my living room, and we had like 8 of the 12 directors. Really, it was going to be 10. I think we had 8 of 10, something like that. And I was actually going to be one of them because one of the other directors wasn't going to do it, so I kind of took their place. And we all would use this technique where we went around the room and we all would fill in the next sentence to the story. So one person started with a sentence, and that was supposed to represent that beat. And then the next one is another sentence, and then the next person. So everybody had to put thought into what all the beats were. And we literally made 3, because we decided to do 3 of them, then we could pick which one of the 3. So this was a lot of work. I mean, it was very complicated, and I feel honored that they went along with me on this process at all, even though it didn't totally pan out. But we made 3 unique stories. One of them was called The Ice Cream Man. One of them was called The Inheritance or something. I don't remember. And then the one we were going to do was called the Demon's Head. And it was a pretty unique story. We decided it was the best one. And so, but I don't even remember what it was the real thing that fell apart. I think we just didn't have time, or I don't even remember. But it didn't fully just formulate. Some projects just don't fully formulate. And I think some more directors fell out or something. In fact, I think Dom was one of them. Yeah. He was finding himself really busy.
It's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
What you're describing sounds like a lot of moving parts.
It was a lot.
And if I can speak to we originally wanted to do that with our Phobia film, is have other filmmakers. And we even had some do them, but it's
hard to organize all that.
Yeah, it was hard to organize, and then the quality of those ones weren't kind of up to par.
We were worried about that too.
No disrespect to anybody who made one, but it wasn't. Yeah. It just didn't. So it made more sense for us just to make all of them at that point. So
that's actually what we kind of decided as well. We were like, because I went to AFM on that year, and then when I came back, I got a lot of advice from distributors and producers and people. And not a ton of advice, but it's kind of like I got the main idea. It's like you get a few different people saying almost the same thing, and you're like, I think I get what's going on here, which was the problem of the film. And it had a lot to do with what you just said, is the quality is probably not going to be consistent. And the idea is like, well, why don't you just have one director make this story? Because a lot of it has to do with passion. Like, if you're going to have ups and downs with a lot of different directors, you got a lot of moving parts. A lot of things can go wrong. And this is where an experienced producer is like, you want to listen to what they're saying, because they're probably right. They've made enough films that they can see all the possible places it can go wrong. Yeah. And it's like, when there's all these moving parts, and I mean, first of all, it's hard enough to get a good, passionate director who really loves the work, loves the material. And so it's like, but now we've got 10 of them, so it's like,
too many cheese.
It's too many cooks in the kitchen,
Yeah, and everybody's kind of, I can imagine, wanting the story to go a certain direction that other people wouldn't necessarily agree with.
Yeah.
That would just be very difficult.
A lot of stuff like that could happen.
So yeah, I think, the idea of an anthology movie is good, and we've seen it done well. Like the VHS films, all of the shorts in there are really high quality, mildly unique, but still live within the world. Right. Even there's a series called The ABCs of Death, which is 26 films, one for each letter, and each letter is like a horror thing, like, even if it's just A as apple, so there's a little 2-minute thing about a horror film with an apple. That's a world where they can be very different.
Yes.
And they are. Like, you've got movies from all over the world. But a cohesive story with everybody, that's tough to do. So
what we decided was we were going to pick one director, or try to pick among these guys, or ask anybody if they'd be willing, and then finish writing the script, finish developing the script, and with that director, and then we could produce it. And none of the directors just kind of like loved it so much to where they would develop it with me. Right. And I think it's because I really was hoping for Dom, or I was hoping for Scott.
Yeah.
And neither one of them were okay with that.
Yeah.
They were not like, they were on board because it was going to be a short, and they would just shoot the short and move on.
Yeah. It's a lot to ask.
Which I can relate to.
It can be a 2-year, I've been with films for 4 years, longer than most of my relationships. So yeah, that's a lot to ask. And plus these guys, they're having a hard enough time giving the movies that like they've been wanting to do forever going, so that's
like
a
Waves
tough ask. Yeah.
His film Waves he's been working on for what?
Yeah.
3 years,
Which I think
4
is
years?
done and out, is finished. But now, like, he's moved on to some other projects. Scott is hoping to direct a feature that he's really passionate about this year, which I'd love to see happen. And yeah, I'd love to see Dom do potentially the film that I wrote that, you know, he's gotten, he's paid for. So it's like he
Lucid.
paid. Yeah, Lucid. So we'll see. Maybe not. But yeah, so
Seeing Evil, I really liked. I think the thing that impressed me was the visuals first. I was like, and Taylor Gerard. I'm like, wow, who knew this guy? He's got some like acting chops, man.
Yeah.
He really does. There's moments when I was like, this should not have been a horror. It should have been a drama, and I would have watched the hell out of this movie.
Sure.
Because it's like, and obviously I did, and I enjoyed it. And Taylor was great. The girl, what's her name? Brave, Lisa Brave.
No, I mean Lisa Brave.
Oh yes, Lisa Brave
has a small part in it.
Blonde-haired girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rebecca Hope.
That's right, Rebecca Hope.
Yeah, who's an actress that we saw in a short film. She's from the Carolinas, and she's a great actress, but she was also like strikingly beautiful. Like looks like Angelina Jolie. And I was like, this person just looks like a movie star.
Yeah.
And she's a decent actress, because there's a lot of actors who are just a face, you know, that like, of course you're going to be famous because you look like that. But no, she's really good and
She sold it. Yeah.
Yeah, and really
She's
sweet.
kind, sympathetic.
Yeah.
You know, like you could believe that she's like tough with him, but she's also kind to him at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. Which she pulled off. And yeah, I'm kind of surprised that she hasn't booked like bigger stuff as of yet. She's in an area where that's challenging. She lives in an area where that's challenging, because I've had actors from Crazy Like go on to have careers in shows and movies, and I feel like I have a good eye for that, you know. So maybe it'll still happen for her. But if you watch the movie for anything, just watch it to appreciate how good-looking Rebecca is.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, or Taylor. Taylor does a great job with that role. I mean, is he like thinking of doing more acting, or?
He has done more acting. He was in a cowboy movie, which I think he did pretty well in, that he shot probably somewhere in the middle of the country.
Yeah. Really, that's great.
Yeah. Honestly,
he's got a great face, man. I've always thought like his eyes. He's just got a great face.
Yeah, he's good in it. What I will say, without getting too much into it, is him and I did not get along well during the movie, and we haven't gotten along since the movie. And not like you know, I'm sending him dead rats in a box. We've just decided that, like, you know, after doing this project, we probably shouldn't work together again or be in communication with each other, and our lives are much better for it. And sometimes that happens. So
you went through a professional divorce.
Yeah, and that made the movie honestly, like, you know, yeah,
creative differences.
Yeah, no, and this is the stuff like you don't often hear about. But like for Chris, who co-directed with me, this movie experience was so. Making that movie was so unenjoyable for him that he stopped making movies for years.
Oh no.
Yeah. I think part of it is we got very spoiled on Crazy Lake because it was a one location film, and our actors were living on location, so and they were young, like teen actors that were just so excited to be there that it was like
well, and Chris has done lots of other films too, doesn't he? Did Die Delta Pi?
Sure, yeah. He'd done a lot of horror stuff
horror
coming
films.
up to that, and progressively, like, you know, not that we were working with crazy budgets, but the budgets were getting bigger, and they were getting closer to, like, ideally what the Hollywood standard of how movies should look, you know?
So you had an amicable, mutual divorce with Taylor, but Chris had a really big falling out
with movies.
With movies.
Yeah, he said, like, he did not enjoy that experience at all, and frankly, like, I didn't enjoy it that much either, but that's a good thing, because, like, I know why.
Yeah.
And I won't put myself in positions like that again.
Right.
You know, and that's the reason we should all be making stuff. Even if your stuff is bad or it's a bad experience, like you're gonna learn why and not do it again, you know?
So just so you know, Taylor, if you're listening, we still love you.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Sometimes things happen. That's okay.
And that's the whole thing is like...
Jason doesn't hate your guts.
No, and that's the whole thing is, you know, like you were saying, he is a good actor.
Yeah,
And we just found that we don't work well together, and that's fine. That's why you have like, and I don't want to say I'm a difficult director, and that's
all of us are difficult.
No, I mean, there's
that's
a
our
weird
job.
thing with some directors are just not nice on set. You know, James Cameron's not a nice person on set. Michael Bay is not a nice person on set. David O. Russell is not a nice person on set. And this is like, Fincher. I mean, Fincher makes you do like 100 takes of something, but I don't know if people have ever been like he's rude.
You're right. You're right.
But like people specifically like Michael Bay will yell at you and in a rude way, you know. So I'm trying not to be that type of director, but it's a stressful environment and it can be. And so when you're really not seeing eye to eye with an actor, like that can elevate those situations. So anyway, that's why you have people like David O. Russell, who George Clooney punched in the face. Obviously, those two do not work well together, and they haven't done anything since Three Kings. But Jennifer Lawrence and David O. Russell obviously have found a good working relationship, and they've done several movies together, and she's won Oscars with him. So it's finding the people, you know, that you work well with. Yeah. And obviously George Clooney's a good actor and David O. Russell is a good director, but they do not work well together. Yeah. And so I would say that's kind of, not to compare either of us to those people, but that's a situation.
Did he punch you in the face?
I'm kidding. No, there were arguments that were, you know, pretty heated late on. Yeah. And that's kind of the thing about making a feature is like things that would bother you wouldn't bother you day one, day 13 or 15 or 17 of your shoot. Like you've been with this person and they've been, it's like being married where, you know, little things set you off.
Yeah, you know, all the little ticks.
No, it's tricky, man.
Taylor, I'm sorry to cut you off. No. Taylor did impress me as a guy who's very opinionated about kind of what he wants to do. Yeah. And it's probably because he is on the other side of the camera sometimes.
Yeah, and I think
so
that was part
knows,
of it is,
you know.
Yeah, it was there was like a power struggle happening where, without getting too much into it, because I'm not trying to like air dirty laundry, but it was a relationship where I think he thought I was there to service him, and I thought he was there to service me, when really we're trying to service each other, but it became that issue of like who's the alpha, and that, you know.
Isn't that rough? That ego is often a problem. I mean, but we have instead of the fist versus face, it should be like mouth versus ear, where it's not a versus, it's like we're talking. we can talk about these things.
Right.
Instead of having
break
to fight
it down,
about
here's
it.
what's really going on here.
Yeah, we've got other methods to solve these problems.
Right.
You know.
So yeah, and that's something like I've been working on as I've been developing, because being a director is an interesting thing as far as ego goes, because you almost have to have a little bit, because people need to look at you and think that, okay, you are in charge and like you're capable of making good decisions, and you need to prove that you're capable of making quick decisions, and people need to have faith in that. And so you need to assert yourself as having confidence. And confidence can very easily go into ego, being egotistical. So you have to ride a line of having the confidence so that people trust you without having an ego or being perceived as having an ego.
I wonder if it's like there's like 80% of people on a crew or a cast who are like they want to see your confidence, and then they'll trust in that. And then there's like a 20% of people who are like they have that ego, but they want to know that you aren't so overconfident that you won't listen to them. And so you have to know how to ride that line as a director and navigate between those people and show confidence to some people, but to other people be like, but I'm not all that. Like, I want to hear what you have to say, just so you understand I make the final decision.
Right. And that can be tough, like, particularly if we're talking about time, like you want to be collaborative, but you know, we figured it out. Like, not that your opinion doesn't matter, but like we know what we're doing, we got it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's those kinds of situations where, you know, you want to make it collaborative, but you also have to put your foot down and like, this is what we're doing. I appreciate it, guys, but we're moving forward this way. And ultimately, you have to respect that, even if you don't agree with it, you know. And you just have to respect that, like, there's a vision happening here. On the Seeing Evil, I had a crew member write a different ending and give it to me and say, you could do it this way, you know, great. Which is a happy ending where they live at the end. And I had to stand by, like, killing off the lead.
I appreciate, you know, like, I appreciate your ideas,
yeah,
sir,
but ultimately, you know, and looking back as, like, I stand by the decision, but I wouldn't end a film like that again. Just because I don't want to upset an audience. I want to make an audience, I want them to feel good at the end of the movie and feel satisfied, you know?
Right.
And so sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I remember the end of Gone Girl. I felt like,
movie.
That's not quite a satisfying ending, but then again, it's like they're stuck with each other, so... Yeah, okay.
Poetic justice.
Like they didn't get in trouble for what they did, but they are kind of stuck with each other. So that's like
the scariest movie that came out in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That movie gives me freaking nightmares.
That was crazy.
Yeah,
that made me respect Rosamund Pike so much. I was like, damn, she's good.
Yeah, she's got a new film on Netflix that I've been wanting to check out. But if you like Gone Girl, you should check out the HBO series Sharp Objects, which has Amy Adams, which is written by the author of...
I remember seeing something about that.
Yeah.
With her. I like her.
But it's from the writer of Gone Girl, so if you like the story of that...
I don't, man. I fucking do not.
Okay.
Movie. I mean, I get it, like, it's good, but, man, that's a freaky concept.
All right, well, if you're looking, don't watch Sharp Objects on HBO.
Stay away.
Yeah, stay away from that.
I mean, I like the ending in a sense, but also I was kind of lost a little bit because when she goes down, it's almost like there wasn't enough impact to the physical, you know, to the gunshots in those moments, to where, like, I didn't really know that she went down, and his performance didn't really back it up, that he was so distraught or so, you know, crazy in the moment. And then when he goes down, and then when everybody's down on the ground, and I'm like, oh shit, no, they are dead. Like, they are legitimately dead. You know, I remember being kind of caught off guard by that, feeling like, man. So I didn't even really have as much of a problem, like you say. I mean, you know, people, I'm sure, and I kind of felt it too, being like, oh, wow. Because then it hit me like, oh, shit, they are dead. Both of them are dead, you know. And that was pretty intense, you know, like you say, it could kind of turn your audience against you. But
I think it could have happened in a little bit more vicious way, like...
A little bit,
a little more
it
like
felt like a little
final.
Soft somewhat, you know, the way that took place. And just... sound-wise, I guess, you know.
When somebody really dies in there's danger, I like it to feel more visceral, like you can feel a little bit of the pain, like there's the gun held to their head or something, and you can hear it and everything. And
we could have
cocking and all these things.
You know what's interesting about that? If just a little more behind the scenes, because like we're talking about Seeing Evil, yes.
Yes.
The end of Seeing Evil when the two main characters die. The limitations of that particular day and night on set. We're shooting in a mansion that's being given to us, and this is towards the end of the night. And so what happens is, like, this is the last scene we're doing in here, so we're in like hurry up mode. We just got to get out. And so like that's where you come in, where budget kind of plays a part in what you're able to do, budget, where you have to kind of rush
that's always rough
situation, and then that affects the final quality of the film. So I would have loved to do that. And looking back, I mean, it's not just from a time standpoint, it's from a writing standpoint. Like there's ways to write that out. Like it would have been great if, because you didn't know if they were dead, if one of them isn't dead and comes back and then gets, like, the main guy comes in and like ends it, like, wow, now that has some finality to it. And now I'm like totally like heartbroken because there was this glimmer of hope, you know. And you would potentially think in a good movie that like they get shot and they're not dead and they're going to get out of there, you know, because that's a story trope that we've seen played out.
And then really put the kibosh on it.
And so there's a lot of ways it could have played out differently at the end.
And I mean, hindsight is what it is. You know, so I'm not trying to split hairs, but I just remember that being something that stood out to me at the end.
Yeah.
You know, being like, man. And there was another moment, just little stuff where when they're in the room and the one guy is like, he's being held down like by his shoulders, you know, just stupid little stuff. I remember being like, oh man, that doesn't really serve it, you know.
Yeah,
It doesn't make sense.
Like I could get out of that, you know, and that's one of those things when we're making movies, and it's like trying to think about every single little thing like that.
Right.
It's tough to do, you know, especially when the wheels are turning and you're trying to do this and do that.
Of course,
you know, and it's tough to catch every single one.
Well, he did strap him his hands.
Yeah,
right?
so he's got like zip ties on.
That did happen at some
You know,
point.
the one guy's like, hold him down, and
Right.
he's got his hands on his shoulders. I'm like, man, I fucking get out of that. I'll headbutt that guy. I'll kick him. You know,
Yeah.
I'll do something in that moment. You know,
Yeah,
but
there's
it's
other
tough
things.
to like.
Like
you
I
know,
didn't like that
quench
the
all of
girl.
those
She was in the other room and she was making
Oh, the scene. Yeah.
yeah,
like
making a
she's
scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, what kind of scene could she really make?
Yeah.
Like, so there's little details like that where it's
Little
like it
stuff,
makes sense
man, it's like
on the
you can't
page,
help
but
it.
then when you're doing it, it's like, is this really going to communicate to people? Like, does this really make sense?
Yeah.
You know, is there another way it could have happened to where it would make a little bit more sense? And I know that we're like being all negative now, but so I might as well go all the way with it. But I guess the other stuff I didn't like as much, and this is why I thought maybe it might have started with the horror and it being like a genre film, and you're thinking of like, I need to make this a legit horror. There was a lot of like, I know I don't mean to sound offensive, but it's like gimmicky kind of horror things.
Sure.
Like with the dead people, you know, like,
Yeah.
and it shows up in the trailer as well. All those things show up in the trailer.
Yeah.
Like the goo mouth.
that's the thing, yeah,
And the
is-
girl, the acrobat ghost girl.
Yeah.
It's such a trope today.
Yeah.
You know,
And
like,
those are all from like, you know, those are tropes that I like.
I
and
like
I don't
it
think
too.
they fit the story, but it did allow me to create a trailer that sold the movie as a horror.
See, that's
Right.
where when I
Right.
said earlier, where it felt like what you were trying to do was make a love story, you know, like an indie kind of relationship thing, and it's
Yeah.
and that I really enjoyed
like
that
that,
aspect
yeah.
of the film. Like the guy's on the drugs and he can't kick it, and he's trying to come back to his wife and the kid and the,
Yeah.
you know, the little girl, and trying to, you know, right the ship.
Right.
Like that side of it, and then it
Yeah.
just feels like this horror thing got shoehorned in a little bit
Yeah.
to like
Right.
make a good trailer and appease that
Yeah.
demographic or
Well, it
you know,
sells better.
whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that it's going to sell better.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I feel like that's where it felt the point of origin being.
I'm the kind of viewer where
relational
I would
side.
rather, like, I see, when you see the trailers, I would rather see the drama than see the horror. I know I'm not
and
like
I think the
every
drama
viewer,
was way more
but
successful than the horror. I mean, I
Absolutely.
enjoyed a lot of what took place
Right.
between those two, you know, and just
Yeah.
even the very beginning, the way it started out, it started really well. I thought. Out
You
in the
think you
woods
might
with
do
the guy in
more
the
drama?
tent, you know?
I
the
think
future?
so, you know, and I think that's, I think making that the second film after Crazy Lake, which is a campy
right.
horror film
Yeah.
with teen,
Like
you know,
hard
a
nose.
teen, yeah. I wanted to
Midnight
challenge
horror.
myself with
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, I can do dramatic
Right.
and write a scene and write some powerful stuff because I love those kind of movies. Also, like I grew up with teen slasher horror films, so I love that. But I also like, you know, like a Good Will Hunting or like a deep drama like that, you know. So yeah, I wanted to see if I could do that, and that's part of like,
Success, man.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
that
it's
element-
a transition, right? The
Yeah.
transition's always going to be awkward, but
Yeah,
I think that's the transition you could make if you get actors like Taylor, you know, like, which I'm sure you could find other actors.
I don't know. You just stepped in a pile of shit.
I
John.
did,
What the
didn't
hell
I?
did
If I
you
could
do
get
that
Taylor
for?
to come back,
Taylor,
no, that would be
Taylor to
interesting
come back.
because it's crazy to say, but like that was in my, you know, early 30s when I made that, and I'm in my mid 30s now. It's crazy to say like I've grown up since that, you know, and part of me thinks like, oh, I could probably work with him now, and particularly if we could kind of flesh out some things. Part of me is like, would I really want to like challenge myself with, you know, that. So I haven't done
We
that.
do have a small community here. And
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like I have to do, but you know, you never know. Like you'd put casting out there and you could find amazing actors.
Well, that's the thing, especially when we did crazy. Like, I didn't really know any of these teen young actors, and we had in-person auditions in Tampa, and now none of them live in Florida. They either live in LA or Atlanta.
Yeah.
And they're like, you know,
They
like
got
I was
the
saying,
bug.
like on big movies and shows. So it's, you know, a lot of that is kind of recognizing and cultivating, you know, not to say, you know, like, but you have that's what's cool about it, is you have a small part in shaping, you know, their careers, and I've kept in touch with some of them. And like, what's cool now is that, like, you know, one of these girls who's on a series, like if I'm doing a movie, I could hopefully talk her into coming and doing a new project with me, you know, and, you know, at an affordable rate, even though she's on a show, you know. So that's one of the perks of it.
Very true, very true.
Is hopefully having that relationship.
So it feels like there's like you and a lot of other filmmakers like Brandon, like Tony, are like moving up into really some really cool work, Hollywood level work. And like Tony, like you said before, he's moved to Atlanta.
Yeah,
Tony Ahedo.
Tony Ahedo, yeah, who just put out his first feature called Icon.
Well, he's not. Did he really put it out, or is he?
It's
still
not. Well,
editing?
it's premiered at a film festival.
Oh, sweet.
So,
So he
it's
did.
So it's premiered.
Yes.
Which
Which
means,
festival did he? Atlanta, maybe.
Something cinema, but I think it's going to be playing in a Florida film festival, like a festival in Orlando. I don't know.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to watch it and then interview him.
Which would be great. He lives in Atlanta,
Yeah.
so you probably have to do it remotely.
Okay.
But I think he would probably love to talk about it, and yeah, he'd give you some insight.
He might come down for family.
Yeah, he still owns the house here, and his sister lives in that house, which is in St. Pete, so not too far from here.
Hey, it's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, funny story about that is his sister is named Antonia, and like on Facebook goes by Tony Ahedo. And so I looked Tony Ahedo up on Facebook one day, and like
you get both of them.
His sister is really good looking, and I was like, "Who's this hot girl with the same name as you?"
That's my sister, bro.
Tony, I had no idea
you did that.
Yeah, no, I'm
you
sure
were
he gets it
also
a
an
lot.
elegant lady.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
That's fun.
yeah. But yeah, him and I have collaborated quite a bit on 48-hour films over the last few years.
That's
and
right.
we've had a lot of success in winning, and we the last 2 years have placed in the top 5 and gone to Cannes Film Festival, and we just won.
Social Silence.
Social Silence, yeah, it was 2 years ago, and then
Was that 48 hour?
That was a 48-hour film. Yeah,
Cool.
In Atlanta.
yeah. No,
They
that
do
one was
some
for
serious stuff up
Orlando. We like to.
I thought it was in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, the one we just won was for Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
and then 3 years ago, we won for Atlanta.
Is this the Chemical Bonds one?
Chemical Bonds, yeah,
Okay, yeah.
is the one that we got together and did during COVID last year in the summer, and made a film, and it won in Atlanta, and then, yeah, just a couple days ago, placed in the top 5, and that means that it's going to Cannes in July, which is cool.
Sweet. It's hard to believe it. It's been a year now for COVID.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You were
that's
like
right.
a year ago,
Yeah, and-
COVID. I'm like, what?
It's still here.
Really?
So yeah, we've kind of figured out a little bit of like secret sauce to winning 48 hours, and we enjoy doing them.
Those seem fun, man. I gotta say, I've always,
Yeah.
for some reason, that stood out in my mind. Like,
Well,
damn,
they're
I would
fun,
like
but
to
they're
try
also
it.
terrible. It's like running a marathon. Like when you're in it, you don't enjoy it, but that sense of accomplishment when you finish it, because there's often, you know, in that 48 hours, we're not getting a whole lot of sleep. You know, a film environment is already very stressful. So what if we just compact it all into 2 days, you know, and deal with all that?
But it's like you push yourself, man.
Exactly.
You know, you test your mettle a little bit.
And that's,
you know?
I think we love being at that
Like the
point where
idea.
we're like embracing the challenge, because it's like, oh, if you can make a movie in 48 hours, having 20 days to do a feature doesn't feel so crazy or, you know, difficult. So yeah, we have a good time doing them, and yeah, we like to work with the same cinematographer who puts up the money for everything usually, which is great.
Oh, cool. That's nice of
And
him.
yeah, and he lives in Atlanta, and he's originally from here, and he's found a ton of success up there. And
Is he the guy who works with Tony now, usually, or?
well, just for these 48s,
Okay.
because Tony's actually a pretty skilled cinematographer as well,
Awesome.
and also a fantastic editor. So he's kind of one of those Renaissance people as well. But the cinematographer is Eric Coughlin, and what Eric has done is he has ads on Production Hub, and has them in like every major city, like pays the most to be at the top of the list, and he will just drive like everywhere from like Atlanta to like Austin to like Washington DC, and he'll do these jobs and make like $3,000 to $4,000 a job, and he'll just be like bouncing all around, getting all these great jobs, and he's really figured out how to make like between $100,000 and let's say $300,000 as a cinematographer, a freelance cinematographer.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So for people who don't think you can make six figures freelance, like as a camera person, you can do it.
You just gotta be super freelance.
Yeah, you gotta be open to that.
No, I'm freelance.
Yeah.
Really? I'll be there tomorrow.
Yeah, which he's done. But now
amazing.
He's worked it out where he has so much gear that he has people he can trust, where he will book a job and then send people on that job and take like half of it and pay the people the other half while he's shooting something in another city, which is
smart guy, man.
Very smart.
What's his name again?
Eric Coughlin.
Eric Coughlin.
Yeah, really good cinematographer. Won best cinematography in the world for Social Silence. Out of all of them, and was nominated for Chemical Bonds, but didn't win this year. So he made the comment like, well, I guess it's time to give it up, and it's like, come on. But he's good. And,
so I guess we can talk about Social Silence a little bit. And the cinematographer you mentioned did that. You co-directed with Tony Ahedo. The thing I liked and did not like about it, just quickly, I liked the beginning sequence.
Yeah.
Which was almost like a different film altogether. And it makes so much, it works so really well. Yeah. It's like a piece of art. Yep. It's like a music video.
Yeah. That's a credit to Tony as an editor, just such a skilled.
I love the simple shot when she's standing at the door and then we cut and she's not at the door anymore. Yeah. Like it's so simple. It's just, but it's really effective. I don't know why. That just stands out in my mind when every time I think about that movie.
Yeah.
I can remember her being at the hotel door and then it cuts and she's just not there anymore. And I like that efficiency. Like I don't need to see her walk in the room.
No.
There's no time for that. Like just she's not there anymore. So we know she's inside of the room.
Right.
And with the the creepy photographer.
This guy.
That's right. That's this guy right here.
If you get a chance, if you're listening now and you want to know what I look like, you can watch Social Silence and see me really creepy in the photographer role.
In your element, right?
Yeah, no, that was
very
fun.
creepy.
Yeah,
good job. Yeah, very beautiful actress.
She's from here, but not here anymore. One of those, and that's the problem with actors in the area, is that you find
the
really
good ones
ones
leave,
and then they leave.
Yeah,
which is fine, and you have to encourage that, because obviously we don't have incentives here where there's just big stuff isn't getting filmed here. Like we can't keep you here. We'd love to have you here, but you got to go float on. And so we really are in a place where we have to continually like find young up and coming actors and help cultivate them before they head out.
Before they leave,
yeah. So yeah, she was great in it.
Very cool.
And we learned some sign language for that.
Oh yeah.
Because the genre that we got for that film, I believe, was silent film.
Oh wow, that makes sense.
Yeah, which was right up our alley, because we like. One of our secrets to doing well at the 48 Hour is avoiding as much dialogue being recorded in scenes as possible. We would much rather have scenes playing out and have a voiceover over the top. But with this one, it was like, we can do all that with no voiceover, no talking. Only thing we might use is maybe a little bit of sign language, so it worked.
Yeah.
That this character was deaf, and it kind of tied into the story.
That makes sense.
So yeah,
because often films where there's not much dialogue, you just respect them more. Yeah. Just automatically by default, you're like, because you're thinking, well, they're putting it into the acting, and often it's the case.
Yeah.
It helps actors to focus what they're doing.
That's always my advice for early filmmakers, even outside of the 48 Hour. I say do something without dialogue. Because one, like, you're probably not a great writer, so you're probably going to write dialogue that feels expository because you're trying to tell a story through your dialogue, and just people don't talk that way.
Yeah.
People don't talk like we're trying to get the story across. People just have conversations. So if you cut that out, you're keeping that problem at bay.
Yes.
And your actors are probably not professional, like really great actors. So it's much easier for them to deliver an emotion with their face than try to deliver what's probably bad dialogue through their best, efforts as as an inexperienced actor.
Right.
So pick a simple story and keep it super short, and then
instead of trying to channel the writer, for example, they can just be themselves.
Yeah, and most of the time you're casting within the realm of possibility. That's why I like when, casting something, you're trying to work the character around what's already there, given what, is there. And that's why something like The Office, the British Office versus the American Office, they tried to make, him like the British Office in the first season, and it just wasn't
too much.
It was too much,
Trying
Ricky
too
Gervais
hard.
is super unlikable, but
which makes him somehow more likable.
yeah. And so what you have is after the first season of The Office, nobody really liked it. The American Office, nobody really was watching it or enjoying it. And then Steve Carell did the 40-Year-Old Virgin, and the people at NBC are saying, we have Steve Carell, who's now a big movie star, attached to this show. We were going to cancel it. Let's keep it going, but let's combine his 40-Year-Old Virgin character with this Michael Scott character, and maybe there's something there. And
kind of go a different direction with the crazy.
Yeah,
like more of the physical gags. And
exactly, and redeeming quality. The thing about Ricky Gervais is he really doesn't have any redeeming qualities on The Office, the British version, but there's glimmers of,
so true.
A good person within Michael Scott.
Yes,
in The Office, and then you have 9 seasons later,
Which is smart because it creates tension. Like, will he be redeemed?
Yeah.
And every season you get to find out, nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
And that's why
maybe
the British Office is
great.
2 seasons of 6 episodes each, because and British TV sometimes just does really short things like that. But you wonder how long could people have put up with someone so terrible and so cringy,
long.
where it's just like, I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah.
But with Michael Scott,
isn't that the challenge with TV? Is when to quit.
Sure.
It's
yeah.
When to quit it all and just become a gem.
Sure. Yeah, I couldn't have done without the last season of The Office, or even just when he left The Office. Not to harp too much on The Office, but
no. Well, and like we're saying, it's a different chemistry, right? So the American version is a different chemistry. They accepted that they're different.
Yeah.
And they learned how to draw it out, which they did a really great job drawing it out as long as they could.
And created some great stories, and kind of, shifted the landscape for American comedy. We don't see a ton of regular sitcom style comedies, like 3-camera, studio audience. That's not really a thing as much anymore. And The Office was part of, changing that course in
They
kind
sure
of TV.
did. They did a great job at that.
I never saw The Office, but Parks and Rec.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean,
it felt kind of similar.
Why haven't you watched
It's very
The Office?
watchable. Very
I don't
watchable.
know. I just never did. I'm not a big TV guy.
Okay.
I just
The
kinda
audience of
steer
this
away
is
from
gasping
TV.
right now because they go, somebody who's never seen The Office, like a single episode.
I know.
Huh.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I like what
They
you
made
were
a lot of
saying
careers.
about when you're talking about
Krasinski.
film avoiding dialogue, and I think that's a really good point, because I think it achieves 2 really important things.
Yeah.
For the actors, I think it forces them to kind of occupy the space in the moment, in the scene, physical acting, as opposed to relying on their voice. And I think that really brings about a more enriched performance when people are constantly worried about the words and the dialogue, and it just is kind of not secondary to it, but they're kind of even, as far as how you should be presented on the screen, and how you fill a space, and how you take over a room, or chew up the scenery or not. Of course, that has to do with dialogue too, but it's like to just inhabit the space and the role. But also as a director, I think it forces you to tell that story visually instead of just cheaply relying on dialogue, which is an easy out.
Right.
You know,
this is such a major point.
Tell that story by how you frame it, because at the end of the day, film is a visual medium.
Right.
It's visual storytelling.
Yeah.
It's not the actors telling your story by what they say.
Right.
Right. So I think you're achieving two really important things by going easy on dialogue.
Right. And that's, I think, something that young filmmakers don't get, because it's very challenging. How do you write something that is going to be visual? How do I tell that story? And you figure it out. You write what would see, and you figure out how to do that. And thinking more about that, when you're affected by something that you see, let's say you're watching a scene with somebody, and let's say it's a man telling a woman that he doesn't love her anymore. What is the part that's affecting you? Is it what he's saying, or is it when you see the shot of how she is being affected by it, when it's what is being said to her? You're reacting to her reaction.
The energy on set.
Yeah, for sure.
Their
and
body
the
language.
overlapping them. And then give
so
me
much
like
more.
a medium shot where there's this distance between the two,
and
like a bed between them or something, right? And suddenly you can feel that. Like,
and that's
holy
the
shit,
language of it, and that's understanding.
I don't know if you guys ever saw the Draupadi Unleashed film. There's actually a scene that you're just describing with a guy and a girl, and they're going through this interaction. And there's this masterful scene that they do between this husband and wife, and then he also has this girlfriend on the side, and he's like being revealed as this terrible monster at this moment. And the cool thing was they knew to pull back from the scene and do like this super wide shot. And because what it reveals is it reveals the posture between them. And they have this energy where he's just like over her and about to hit her and all these things, and she's like back on a couch, and it's just it's like heartbreaking to watch. You know, where generally you would see a lot of people push in and do super close-ups, and then they'd focus on this kind of banter back and forth and all these things. Oh, it was really masterful. If you could see Draupadi Unleashed just to see that scene, oh man.
Yeah, for people listening who don't know about that movie, that's another film shot in Florida.
Yes.
Yeah.
Shot by Brandon Hyde.
Shot by Brandon Hyde, yeah. It's an Indian film shot in Florida, which is crazy.
We have a pretty large Indian community here.
Yeah, and that's actually part of talking about earlier about where the funding comes from. That was funded by an Indian family out of, I don't want to say where they're at, because I don't want these people to get hit up for money.
They're local.
Yeah.
What's his address? What's his phone number?
Yeah, a wealthy Indian family who wanted to see this Indian story done because it was close to them, and they wanted to see it played out. And
Great film.
That's directed by Tony.
Is it Stopperin?
Yeah, Tony Stopperin,
Yeah.
who's a great guy, who is now in Washington State, which is funny because that's where I'm from, and then I came to Florida. And, but we've kept in touch, and he's out of the area, but did that film, and got a lot of crew. That was shot close to Orlando, and I think it's on Amazon Prime, or at least you can purchase it on Amazon if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I saw it on Amazon.
Yeah. So, which might be, I don't know exactly how to spell it, but Draupadi Unleashed. Yeah. If you want to see how they pulled that off and that cinematography that you're talking about.
But yeah, back to your film. So you figured out the 48-hour thing, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, the second part of it, I didn't like it as much. Like more of, I guess, a lot of the story. I kind of, some of the stuff I didn't like was the way she figures it out, and that her friends online save her. It just didn't seem as
It felt a little convenient. I remember thinking that.
And mildly confusing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah.
But it still won, so, like...
So you guys don't think it should have won, but...
No. Probably compared to these other films, probably.
When watching this movie, thinking to myself, and of course this is just creative differences, nothing more than that, but the idea of never leaving the hotel room, but staying in there with that photographer. Maybe he goes into like an internet search, and then he finds a girl and he starts to text her, and we're waiting to see if she's going to respond, and she gets a response. There was something about cutting to the girl and going into the daylight when she, I get it. It's like we're trying to establish her, whereas I felt like, damn, if we could have just stayed with this guy, and then we have this unsuspecting person arrive at the door, it would almost be possibly more, I don't know, heartbreaking.
So more from his perspective.
For me, just thinking about it from my own take would be, I wonder how that would take place, staying in the hotel room with him post dealing with the first girl, and then he can't stop himself and he's scouring the internet and he's trying to find another one because he's just that fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well,
and
plus
to see it from his perspective,
she becomes more of the mystery
instead
of him. She becomes more of
exactly.
who's this girl?
Yeah. In a sense. But I remember thinking that, and I remember really liking the opening sequence, and for some reason the girl outside of the hotel room and the cut to her not being there.
And her being more of a mystery could help with the ending, because then it's like, well, she's got things we don't know about. She's got methods that, or like she's got friends on her phone or whatever that we don't understand. And then when it happens, you're like,
and the fact that also that she's that she's deaf too. I feel like when she comes to the door, and then it could almost be like a shocking, like, oh shit, man, and he's gonna go through with it still, almost, in a sense, if she come to the door and we see and find out that she's, hearing impaired. It would add something more to it, almost like this is, in a way, a more vulnerable person, in a sense.
So how did it all happen for you? Like, how did that take place?
The process of it?
Yeah, like the story. How did it take place?
Well, it's usually the way these things work. The process that we've kind of fallen into is, they like to get people together to like hash out ideas. And the problem with 48 hours, we're having a lot of people in the writing process, is that you're trying to please all these ideas. And it's that thing we talked about earlier, where somebody's thing is not your thing, and it just muddles it and makes it muddy.
Somebody's got to steer the ship.
And it's hard to create a cohesive story. So what I like to do, because it's time sensitive, and often when you're like, and you probably in sitting in on your sessions of trying to get everybody on the page of like, what do you think we should do here? And then what do you think we should do? It's too many ideas, because people just have unique thoughts, you know?
Yeah.
And also there's a structure to what makes good story. And so combining your thing with your thing completely could throw off what makes a good story structure.
Yeah.
So what will often happen is people will be having ideas, and I'll be sitting back with a computer, and I will listen to things that maybe make sense, and then I will write, because these are 4 to 7 minute movies. So, and I try to lean towards shorter.
You're kind of filtering out the nonsense.
Yeah, so I will then write a story or flesh out an idea, and then they'll still be talking, and they've kind of maybe even moved on from an idea.
Yeah.
And they're on to something else. And then I will write another script.
Right.
And then I will, like, everybody's like, well, what do you think? And then I'll go, okay, well, we've got 2 scripts to choose from at this point.
Yeah.
You know, some of it is based on some of what you're talking about, but really it's based on kind of this and this. Because keep in mind, you're trying to fit in genre, character that's been decided for you already, a character like occupation and name or whatever, a line of dialogue, and a prop.
Right.
That all have to somehow fit into this as well.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge of writing a good story wrapped around there. And so the prop and all that stuff is all the same. The genre is what changes in these 48 hours.
Right.
So that was, if I'm not mistaken, how that worked out, where I,
do you end up pulling rank sometimes? Just being like,
well, it's gotten,
considering I've won 2 of these awards already.
Well, no, and for writing,
I think we should go with my script.
It's been a lot, but there's also an understanding, because we work together, that maybe I have more writing experience, but there's also a way of making people feel heard.
Yeah.
But it's also being, because we know each other so well, sometimes that will be a bad thing, because they don't have a problem saying that ending sucks.
Right.
Let's not do that. And it's like, well, keep in mind, we're doing this because of this, and if you don't do this, it messes up all of this in the beginning. So then it has to get somewhat democratic, and that's where Tony and I kind of like, we have to really agree on it. And then it's an interesting situation because I mentioned Eric the cinematographer puts up the money. So in a weird way, it really has to be.
It's really up to him.
He has to, he has to sign off on it as well. And we have to be very persuasive if it's something that he doesn't like, because he's putting the money up, and often, not just putting the money up for like the fees to get in, but often like location and food, which can get very expensive. And so we appreciate that. And I also want to make sure, again, speaking to like no dialogue, it's because he's the cinematographer that's paying for this. I want to make sure that he gets a ton of great cinematography for the story, because we're trying to give him stuff that he can use. So less dialogue, he can kind of go nuts with crazy visual stuff, and we can do like a music video type montage, you know. And
which Social Silence has.
And so does the
Chemical Bonds.
You know. So that's something that we found worked, and did it again, but told it with a completely different story, yet somehow not enough people really recognize that, oh, this is almost formulaic at this point of having, granted we use a little voiceover in the new one, although I like Social Silence more than Chemical Bonds. Still, they both did.
Hey, when you got a special sauce, go with it.
That's the thing, you know. If you're finding what works, and that translates to, I don't think we were talking on the show, but just about being a director and developing a style. I feel like that's what's missing for people, is finding what you do that makes you you. I would almost rather see that than anything else. Is have a style, you know, because it's like, you want to be an indie director, cool, but what's going to set you apart from anything? Like, what do you do that somebody else doesn't do? What is your voice? What is your unique perspective? You know, when we watch like a Wes Anderson movie or a Quentin Tarantino movie, you know,
100%.
you know, heartbeat, who made that film.
Number one person I thought of when you were talking about style, someone like Wes Anderson, because you always know what you're going to get when you go into his movies.
Right. And you like it, and he delivers, yet, like, unlike a lot of films,
like, surprises you and does something, you know,
when he deviates from it.
And right.
It means a lot more.
You get used to it. It's like almost working in their own genre. You know what to expect, so those slight variations stand out all the more.
Right.
You notice them.
Which is like with Tarantino, you know, he's done multiple kind of genres of movie, but they all still fit into his voice.
Yeah, and when he made like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I was like, I think that was a lot of the reason I loved that film. That was like, to me, the best film of that year. But it had more drama in it, and more texture, more like local flavor texture to it, which he doesn't always do. he sticks to a lot of like, if there's texture involved, it's like violence or you know, blood or like.
Definitely got to say a lot less violence.
Stuff like that. Yeah, a lot less violence, more drama, more character stuff happening.
It was almost like a buddy cop thing, you know. It was like, you know, two really good friends, and it's like, man, you're like standing on your seat cheering for these guys by the end of the movie. You know, that bond that was there. It's kind of different, you know, from what he's done.
I mean, I guess Jackie Brown was similar, but in some ways.
Yeah, but I mean, what happens between De Niro and Sam Jackson in that movie,
man.
right? I
mean, it's true.
If I remember right, it goes south, I think. But
So it's finding that voice.
Finding that voice.
Yeah, that's important too. Like you
said,
create
a unique style.
To get into it, man, you can't find that without going for it, because you're gonna have a starting out point of what you like and what you try to emulate and what you basically try to copycat. Right,
and that's what Tarantino is he's just copying a bunch of people, and in doing that has made it something unique.
And you are going to fail miserably,
Yeah.
But in the process, you're gonna find what you actually do and what you know. What you're gonna kind of like boil it down to like a concentrated version of what you really, what catches your eye, you know, and what matters to you.
And if I can speak to kind of full circle back to Seeing Evil, what we talked about is like, I liked like It Follows as a movie, and I like, you know, these dramas and everything, and it was just trying things in that world and getting to do it within a movie. So when you're watching that, you're essentially watching me trying different genres or things, and it not necessarily working together, but still just trying to figure out what it is that I like and how I would tell a story. And that was 4 or 5 years ago at this point. And now you're getting to see some of the storytelling in these 48 hours, you know, and kind of seeing there's a progression there.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool that I don't think I found it yet, but I'm still finding it, and I'm doing that through.
It's a process. I think it's a lifelong process.
I think you've got your priorities.
We all kind of sign up for it.
Yeah, I think you've got your priorities right with filmmaking, because I think, and me and you have talked about this, Tim, a lot actually, which is that visuals are pretty much number one.
That's paramount, man.
It's
like,
paramount.
It has to be.
And there's so many local films where you're like, what was going on here?
Yeah.
And like there was no visual creativity.
How could it play second fiddle to anything? Else, you know.
And so you guys are almost always your visuals, whether it's you or Tony or Chris, it's like they're coming out in a strong way. And I think that's really important.
And that kind of speaks to like figuring out the basics and the rules first, and then you can kind of bend or break those rules or work within those rules. You know, I'm leaning towards like, you know, lighting a lot of people from behind now, and I like very dark and, you know, and that's kind of developing as my style of I like silhouette-y dark stuff. And, you know, traditionally you want to see their faces, so let's light the front of their faces, you know, and that's what I'm like leaning towards a style where I'm kind of flipping that around, and I don't mind shadows on faces and things like that. So, yeah, that's
a good point.
You learn the basics, and then you learn the rules, and then you can break them.
You have to know the rules in order to know how to break them, and when to break them,
exactly,
and not to over break them.
Right,
but,
right.
You know, do it in a, you know.
Right, like a big one is the 180 rule.
The 180.
You're not supposed to break the 180,
you don't know
but there are times when you can break it.
Flip it, and people feel that in a way that they might not even notice, you know, initially, right? Wrap it up, Jim.
Everybody needs a style.
Find your voice, find your style. If I could, offer any kind of advice, it would be think about that more. Is what makes you unique as a filmmaker? Because that's how you're gonna. If the goal is to have a career or even make films that are you know, that are yours. It's find your voice and find your style, because people will gravitate towards it, even if you think that you don't have. There's nothing unique about what you do or what you like. Like, there is something there, you know, and that's from local people that I've seen. There's this girl, Zoe, that was just made these quirky films. You know, they weren't perfect technically, but you definitely saw that she had a voice, and she liked these quirky indie, like, you know, kind of whimsical films. And so if that's what you like, do that, you know, or make the goal to find out what it is that makes you special.
But you got to be making stuff.
That's the only way. See,
you're never going to figure it out on paper, you know?
Or if you can get on set, that helps, but really making the stuff. If you can be on set and see how the technical stuff works and what doesn't work, you can pick and choose from that and say, ooh, I like how they did that, and I see exactly how they pulled that off, you know? But watch a lot of movies and see what you love. If you love, like, 80s action movies, like, don't think like, oh, I can't do movies like that now. Don't think about that at all. Like, do the types of movies that you like and want to make. Don't make a lightning movie just because someone's going to give you money for a lightning movie.
Who does that?
You know? Be better than that and say, look, we're not going to do the lightning movie. I got a great idea for a movie called Lucid, and you're going to put money into that.
That's right. No, I think it was a good choice you made. It was good.
Yeah,
and it's a decent film. It's a really decent film.
It's a learning experience, and it's got a lot of good aspects to it, I think.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah, sure. It's not, I'll say, it's not terrible, but there's definitely, things I do different and will do different. And that's what's cool, is that my career's not over and I can keep making stuff. So embrace, you know, your early stuff. Watch Tarantino before Reservoir Dogs did some stuff that wasn't very good, not feature length, but Christopher Nolan, who's like amazing, his early stuff, you look at that, you're like, oh, this isn't that watchable, but you know, that's how they became. So, you know, you'll get there.
So it looks like you're going to, with a lot of people like Tony, are you moving to Atlanta as well, or?
I love it in Florida.
Yeah.
There's a reason people retire here, and I've found that. Coming from the Northwest, where 9 months out of the year it was raining and gray all the time, I've really come to love it. And, you know, speaking frankly, like financially, like I'm doing great out here with what I've found. You know, I mentioned having a lot of camera gear. I rent all that out and make enough to just live off of those rentals if I wanted to. Cool. But then I'm going out and doing shoots occasionally, making a little bit from movies, and then I started up an online store where I'm selling like LED panel lights, and that has turned into a crazy big business that hasn't been a huge time thing for me, that I'm able to now. I'm going to bring on some employees and have them manage it, and that's doing well. So it's
really?
finding,
I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah, it's finding side hustles, and I think a lot of us in the business find those side hustles that can be making side money or things we enjoy. You know, maybe it's weddings, you know, where you're doing...
I could actually use some lights, by the way.
Yeah? Well, yeah, brightcine.com.
Brightcine.com. Okay.
Brightcine, BRIGHTCINE.com. Yeah, or we have an Instagram page if you want to see pictures of kind of our lights in action.
Right.
And I use them. I'm getting excited to... The main light I sell is like a sky panel style light, and a sky panel costs over $5,000.
Yeah.
And I sell them for $1,400. And
nice, bro.
So it's like a nice... It's
great.
It's for like people like, I guess would be like myself, who are like indie filmmakers or production companies who don't want to drop $5,000 on one light. You know, it's like a nice option.
You get some people to make it for you instead.
Yeah.
Yes. How did you get them made? Is this a Chinese company? Or?
Yeah, Chinese manufacturer. And, and what's great about it is I've developed this relationship now that we are developing new lights that are the things that aren't on the market that I want and would use, and that other people would want and use, you know? So some new products are coming out this year that I'm really excited about, because it's going to double and triple what I'm able to do, because, you know, I'm just expanding what I sell. And through the process, I've got to meet other film people from across, you know, I ship just to USA and Canada right now, but just throughout the country and Canada. And I have like an understanding, because like I know, you know, I'm not just selling you these lights. Like I use them. I know how you'll use them. We can talk about what's going to be best for how you use them.
Yeah. So some of the features on your lights. What do you have? The color spectrum thing.
Of course. Yeah. It's full RGB, and
they're mobile. You can plug them in.
Of course. Yeah. That's what's unique about them, is they have battery plates on the back, being a light that big. Like even the $5,000 RE Sky panel, you need like a separate attachment to be portable and put batteries on it. Like mine has plates on it, so you can run batteries off it just outside or wherever you are. And
cool feature.
Yeah, they've been great, and I'm really excited about the future. It started, you know, just like maybe a year and a half ago, and I was selling just 1 or 2 a month, and now I'm moving like 20 or 30 a month, and it's become kind of this thing. And it was a good choice. Actually recommended to me by my producing partner, who was like, "You like those lights so much, like I don't think anybody carries them in the United States. Like you should distribute these lights and start up kind of a business."
Yeah, man.
And it's been good. So
it's a good move.
Bright Cine.
Yeah, Bright Cine. So
I have to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are making money online, you know, and they tell you like, don't do it in like necessarily something you like, because that might not be the thing that sells well. But for me, it's worked out well, and so don't take my idea, but find your own thing, you know, and make money online.
I'm gonna make those lights for $1,300.
That's right.
Yeah, don't do that. Margins that you couldn't do it. But
buy our lights instead.
Yeah. Plus, I've built up marketing and all. You couldn't. So don't even try it.
Don't even try. Don't even go there, man.
I swear, if you do.
I thought we were friends.
Yeah, not you guys, the listeners. I know you guys won't do it. It's somebody in Nebraska who thinks they got a great idea to screw
You can't
me
do
up.
it, dude, in Nebraska.
Yeah.
Can't be done.
Anyway.
Forget about it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Sure.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, it's been a long one. I don't know who's made it out this far with this, but yeah, hopefully some people got some value out of it.
I think so.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a good talk.
We'll have you on again.
Sure.
It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll have other projects to talk about, or we can talk about anything you want.
Yeah,
Okay.
once you do the one that you're heading off to go do.
Yeah,
now.
I'm heading off to Virginia in 2 days, and I'll be there, for 3 weeks, and then coming back for a few pickup shots. But that's not necessarily my film, but I will be shooting it, and we can talk maybe a little bit about what the process of getting on a film, to be the cinematographer, and what that relationship is working with a director, and how you kind of they have their style, but how do you have your style as a cinematographer, and how do you mesh those things?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe I'll even send you guys some stills while I'm out there, so you can see frames of what's going on in Virginia.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
Very cool.
And that movie is called, in case it's out by the time, it's called Finster, and that's the name of the killer in the movie. And
Okay.
it's a female-led murder kind of thriller.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Cool, man.
We'll keep an eye out.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Talk to you next time.
All right, that was a good one, man. I like that one.
Was that a good?
That was cool. That was all good.
All right, bye.
This has been John Croft and Tim Mannix wishing you happy, trouble-free filmmaking to our film community, and happy networking at Film Bar Mondays. Seeing Evil, Episode 3 of the Film Bar Review. Look for Seeing Evil on Amazon Prime and Social Silence on YouTube. You can also find Jason Henne, Henne, on IMDb, and you can contact him via Production Hub. The Film Bar Review is made in association with the local Florida and Georgia-based film networking events called Film Bar Mondays, which takes over bars and breweries on Monday nights to bring filmmakers and actors together across the spectrum of experience to have a drink, discuss the industry and our battle stories. In this case, we're discussing locally made films. We critique them, and we give a voice to the people who work on them. Join us Monday nights in cities like Atlanta, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, and Tampa, Florida, to have a drink and talk film. Reach out at thefilmbarreview@gmail.com and find Film Bar Mondays at our various group pages on Facebook.